Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Blame It on Marketing. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the nirvana or the happy state of being in a situation where you have product led growth. And we are joined by someone extremely awesome who I'm going to hand over to introduce herself.
Emma, I'm very happy to be here. A little bit about myself. I'm Alina. I'm an entrepreneur. I started Chili Piper 6 years ago. The company has grown to the place where it's at. We're 30 million in ARR. Before that, I was working mainly as in product teams, building in ed tech, in finance, in all sorts of industries. Some of my products got keynoted by Steve Jobs. And before that, I lived in Romania, and now I'm in New York, in Brooklyn, where I really, really love it. And I'm there with my two little boys and my co-founder.
So let's start with the most basic question there is about product-led growth. What is it? Because it sounds like a thing that SaaS people can do, but can it work for other B2B type companies, or what are your thoughts on that?
I see this term product-led used interchangeably to mean very different things for very different people. And I'm understanding that overall it's just a focus on product. And as B2B marketers, we're all selling that particular product. It might happen that it's a service, but even if it's a service, it's still the product that takes precedent. There is a piece, though, that where the product becomes the focus of marketing, of everything else. And the reason why that has become a more popular term these days is because consumers have very little patience. They just want to get to use whatever it is that you're selling immediately. They don't want to talk to a million people before they get there. They don't want to fill out a million forms before they get access to it. So it's that commoditizing the product to the consumer as fast as possible in a way that allows them to get a feeling and a glimpse of what that product does, to be able to be convinced that it's the right thing for them. In many cases, they go to a competitor if the product is ungated and if they offer a freemium and there's an advantage of that. So I think that the term came into focus because of this freemium and this idea of getting fast to value. But I've seen it used in other ways as well. For instance, I've heard marketers saying product-led growth when they're just ungating the demo, for instance, and that is part of the a product-led strategy as well.
So it's very much a scale, I assume, basically how much you can do based on what your product does, because we also know that some products just don't free trial or freemium well, because they were never built to do that, or they're complex and all of those things. Where would you say would like to get to in terms of, let's say, Chili Piper, in terms of that product-led growth, and where are you now?
It becomes complicated with products that are very, very complex, that are best suited for sales assisted or customer success assisted journeys to be able to implement them well. And it took us a very long time to figure out how to bring our product to market. We have different versions of it coming in the short term. So in just a few weeks, we have a launch for just one piece of our product, then another piece, and then another piece that we're bringing to the user immediately. But so we started 6 years ago, and it took me 3 years to figure out just how to make it self-serve. We've played with so many variations of it. We've tried so many user testing, so many paths to how the UI can be built, because it was such a complex problem to solve that we just couldn't we couldn't nail it in the first try.
That makes sense. And are you still looking to move towards like as self-serve as you can physically get with your current product iterations?
The idea is that 80% of the cases can be solved through this self-serve, and then for the 20% that are a lot more advanced and the teams are either enterprise or they just very advanced in their use cases, then there will be customer success assisted. And of course, we will have customer success also for the others, but we will introduce that from the beginning in the most complex cases.
Yeah, I've always been really impressed with your guys' onboarding, even though you still work, or at least I've always worked with somebody to onboard me. It's still so quick and easy, and like you actually do the work when you're on the call, which is so different to most other, like, I would say marketing SaaS type platforms where, you know, you have to do all this discovery and then go away and set all this shit up and like all of that stuff. So yeah, I've always been impressed with the fact that you're actually going even further than that. I'm like, you guys are done, you're fine.
It's scary whenever a marketer has to set up a new tool because do we need RevOps support? Do we need marketing ops support? Are they going to prioritize this? Or am I going to be on the list for 6 months from now? But yeah, we try to make it as easy as possible.
A massive part of what you were talking about there, Alina, is also the customer and the customer experience. And I'm really interested to hear a little bit about how that ties into the product-led growth, because it seems like obviously the product and making that really great is a huge part of this, but the customer and their experience forms sort of almost like, sounds like the other half of it.
The customer experience is such a beautiful concept that many companies are trying to nail, and they never know where to put it because is it a marketing thing, is it a product thing, is it a sales thing? And the reality is that it's an everything thing, because you're touching customers at every single stage of your company, through your sales team, through your marketing, through your product. And sometimes it falls under creative director, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes someone cares about it and they try to rally the teams together to create the best buyer journey as possible. I think that for the customers to have the best experience through your with your company, it has to be a CEO thing. That if the CEO really cares about all the touch points that the customer has, then they're going to go above and beyond to align the teams on how to best do that, because teams in siloed are not incentivized to fully optimize because they can't. It's really hard to get another department to do something without them having a pull or a push, and it's a lot easier for the CEO to come in and say, hey, let's make sure that our customers can get the best out of our product immediately. And sometimes it's even something as simple as the first time they see you, they get something out of value from your content. Or if you're posting like you're doing with a podcast, you want to make sure that when they listen to it, the things that they remember and the things that they take away from your brand are the type of things that you care about, that you feel that are important for your brand to represent. And it goes beyond at all touch points. Every email that they get from you, every message that they get from your team, it's an art to pay attention to all of them, but in the end it adds up and it matters.
So your background originally was in product development or a product manager, I'm not sure. Do you code?
Product manager, yeah.
Product manager, okay, cool. Everything. And it totally makes sense that you have this product-led growth approach now as the co-founder and the CMO of Chili Piper. I guess my question is it possible to have that product-led growth when that isn't the background, let's say, of the CEO, let's say they're a salesperson or something like that? Or I know in a lot of places, so marketing cannot touch the product. Like, it's not an option to touch the product. How do you're obviously leading the company and that's your background. How do you even start that conversation when that's totally not the setup in the company?
It's tough. I see a lot of marketers struggling with it. And actually pretty much all the marketers that I speak with, they tell me that the product is basically out of their hands. And I'm resonating with their pain. Obviously, I don't have it because I am the co-founder in the company. So if I want to touch the product, I touch the product, even though I'm the acting CMO. The reality is that if you have someone that's really, really passionate about the best experience for your buyers and your customers, they can instill the kind of energy into others to get to align behind a vision and a mission. That person that's passionate about this subject, they have to have a lot of strength in their conviction and in their and in the way they bring the message forward to the other teams in a way that gets them excited. And that's something that has to be practiced before before it can be done fully at scale with small things like, hey, would it be great if we do that? How exciting would it be? And you go and you talk to X, Y, Z, and you try to influence like in a like in any other influence project that you have to do. And it's been fascinating to me because you'd think that because I am the co-founder, I have the magical light switch to make things happen. But the reality is that if people are not buying in, it's a lot harder. So I always want to make sure that whatever we do, I have people's buy-in into the project. So I go and I ask and I ask and I ask, what do you think about that? And what do you think about that? Because it's hard to just tell someone to do something without them thinking that it's the right thing to do.
It almost sounds like getting that customer experience mindset first before you try to go for product-led growth is probably the best way to do it, because one, you can derive the product-led from caring about what the customer experience is, which is a whole other episode for this podcast when it comes to B2B in all seriousness, but that makes a lot of sense.
It's true. It starts with the customer experience and being maniacal about it, with all the touch points is something that few people have it. And I think that one way marketers can instill that in an easy way is to do a mystery buying experience. You pay a company to just show you what it's like to buy from you, and then give you the findings in a document so that it looks unbiased. It's a third party. They tried to buy from us. This is what their experience looked like. This is the email that they got. They spoke with 10 people in our company. They were completely confused. It took them 10 days before they got from point X to point Y. In the meantime, they could have bought from 10 other competitors because we are so slow to respond, or it takes forever to get routed from one department to another, whatever the leakage is. And that's something that usually is very eye-opening to the CEO as well, if they're not paying attention to it.
Yeah. I love that idea of secret shoppers for like B2B. I'll do that job. I think it sounds good. I'm really interested as well, because obviously it is, like I say, I think it really resonates with both of us that it's super customer centric as well as product focused. So how should being product led impact your kind of marketing efforts?
In my case, it's very particular because whatever I do in our marketing team gets deployed in our product. Right now, I'm completely obsessed with this idea of automating all our mission critical generating emotions. So as you're getting signals from the market that someone might be a good fit, so in our case, let's say that somebody's starting to use Clearbit, then for sure they should be using Chili Piper as well alongside. And I want to automate that so that they know that there's this capability. And the way I can do it is by having certain motions in parallel happening. If they're an enterprise account, I can invite them to a dinner. If they're a medium-sized account, I can do two things in parallel. I can run a paid campaign and say, hey, you're using Clearbit, why don't you use Chili Piper as well? And then also send out an email. And obviously we have like 100 integrations and 100 ways to use case as well in which Chili Piper can be used. So automating that at scale and per vertical to me is like super exciting. And right now we're trying to put all sorts of duct tape to make it work. But if I do get to the results that I want, then I'll put it in the product as well so that other marketers can run campaigns at scale based on signals in the market.
And since you've become the acting CMO, I'm just going to say CMO, how do you think the interactions that you've had and the dynamic that you've had with your marketing team has changed, or if at all?
Oh, Jesus. I've learned so much in the past 6 months. I can't even tell you. I'm finding a lot of similarities between product and marketing, because in product, you have to create product market fit, and in marketing, you have to create language market fit or offer market fit, whatever the strategy is. And the reason why I'm learning a lot is because in marketing, unlike product, you get to learn a lot faster if something works or doesn't, because you can run it, you come up with an idea, you run it next day, you get feedback. So as a result, you get to do hundreds of experiments, whereas in product, I had to wait 6 months before the product was built, or 3 months, or whatever that time was. I've learned a lot in my journey as a product manager, what can be done, what can not be done from an engineering perspective, and what makes teams build the right things. But I've never had the opportunity to learn so fast at such a fast pace like I did in marketing. And you do that across channels. You learn a lot about how to run better events. You learn how to do better social, how to do a better podcast, how to do better video. And you get a lot more breadth of skills in that process a lot faster. It influences how you might think about creating the best experiences across all these channels as well. And you start becoming a lot more mindful about, if they're coming through a paid campaign, what does the experience looks like versus what does it look like from an organic, from a direct, from a competitive landing page. So it becomes a lot more encompassing of my customer journey than it was before, where I was just narrowing down on the product. So it's a beautiful. I think that every founder should maybe become CMO at some point, just for the fun of it. But I don't know if everybody gets excited by these things the way I do.
It's a funny thing, because I feel like most people that aren't marketers, because they experience so much marketing, they always think they know how to do marketing, or at least they can input on marketing. And then you get there and you're like, oh my God, what is all this shit?
Who are all these random people with these like weird job titles who do random specific things? It's very, but mind you, I guess that's not that different to product, right? Is that
True.
You have product specialists, and marketing we have specialists. Would you? I don't know.
We all think we can input because we experience both product and marketing.
Yeah,
but not so many people think that they're good at product, but a lot more people think that they're good at marketing. And you get a lot of people with input on your positioning, on your messaging. Everybody thinks that they should be done differently. I've never met two experts who would agree on what messaging looks like. And it's true that it's a lot more of you learn how to manage people's expectations, and you learn how to manage feedback in different ways. In product, I didn't have to do that. I would just build whatever I thought I needed to build, and I did it, and it worked, and I did it again, and then it worked, and did it again. I didn't have to deal with people's opinions on it.
Yeah. What's your take on that? Because obviously a lot of the people that listen into our podcast are obviously marketers, and a lot of them are kind of going through that like they're having to manage people's opinions. What's your take on that? How do you kind of expect your marketers to handle that?
I've been practicing a specific skill for it, and so far so good. And it has to do with when you're receiving an opinion that's completely different than yours, that has a complete opposite point of view. Instead of trying to defend your point of view immediately, or trying to say that their thing is wrong because X, Y, Z, is to dig with curiosity to understand where their point of view is coming from until you fully understand it. It creates two things. First, it helps you understand how different people come up with their thoughts, and everybody's so different, and they have a different expectation from what something should be. And it makes the other party feel heard as well. And the other party feeling heard is an important component of it, because if they don't, then they're going to be frustrated, and they're going to feel that you're dismissing them, or you don't care about them, and that you have that you're not someone that they want to work with. So the leaning in with curiosity when someone has a very different opinion than yours is key, I think. Especially since these days I find it so interesting that there's a lot of musical chairs in marketers and CMOs in general. They change jobs so fast. It's so critical to form that good relationship with their peers, with their upper management, especially when they disagree or there's a conversation that's more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we started this podcast, because we and not just because of the musical chairs, but because we so often get the blame, and because we have to deal with so many unsolicited opinions that we're always a bit like, I'll move on. Maybe I'll go find someone who will actually listen to me for once. So it's nice to hear it from you. What are some of the challenges you've seen with being product led, or are there any?
I don't know that there are challenges per se. There are always problems that need to be solved. So, for instance, something that a lot of companies try to nail is within a freemium experience, when does the sales assisted process start? When does a salesperson become involved to help them? And what does that process look like? Because many times it's not really sales, it's a lot more, it smells a lot more like customer success, right? Because you need to help them get the most value out of the product. It's not, you're not there to close a deal. And that's when it becomes a lot of trial and error until you get it right. And in our case, if you have like multiple products and multiple personas, and every persona expects something different, and it depends a lot on company size, so it becomes a lot of A/B tests and a game of trying to solve for that buyer journey in the best possible way, and it just becomes a lot more complex the bigger the organization is, on how to have that growth happen, and adjust the right levers on the way.
I recently had a call with someone who is a marketer, and they're just been given a new product to launch that has a freemium, and she was like, I've never done this, like, but this sounds great, kind of thing, you know, people are just going to sign up and use it. And I'm like, oof, you got to be on it from now on. Like, marketing is not your only job anymore. You have to make sure that once they sign up, they're happy, they're getting to use the product, they're making sure that, you know, the right touch points are there, the time to wow, I think there's time to wow is a thing, I think, you know, like all of those touch points. So like marketing can almost extend through then the entire process, unlike in normal kind of B2B where you get to a demo and then marketing kind of fucks off for the most part. But yeah, it's to me, I think when I think of product-led growth, and there's different ways to do it, freemium is not the only way to do it, obviously, but once you open that box and you're actually allowed in it, there's so much more responsibility, almost, in a way. Obviously you get to affect things so much more, but that could be something that someone's totally not equipped with or to deal with, basically.
But that is what customer marketing is for, and so many organizations won't invest in customer marketing, but the role of a customer marketer is to make sure that adoption of your product, that, you know, renewal is there, retention is there. So if you're doing that freemium version, or you're gonna, or, you know, in some other way, you need customer marketing. People don't want to invest in it.
I'm finding that I'm finding so much diversity on this topic on all the marketing teams that I speak with. Some of them have customer marketing that do that. Some of them, they call it lifecycle marketing, that do that. But they think of it, every company thinks of customer marketing and lifecycle marketing so differently. Some just think of just sending gifts to some of your most valuable customers. Some of them just think about a customer advisory board, and some are getting more advanced that are thinking about cross-sell and upsells and retention as well. And I've also seen teams in which this part of upsell, cross-sell, retention falls under product. I've also seen team where this falls under customer success. They have like a digital customer success person and they care about this experience. Every company is structured so differently that it's not always the marketing team that handles it. Actually, a few times marketing teams are part of this process, which I find interesting because in theory, when you're upselling or cross-selling, you have to build on value again. You have to create the same kind of funnel again that you've done at the top of the funnel. You're now doing it with your customers, so it's kind of similar. But again, I've just seen very different structures on this topic. I have a lot of opinions on it, but I think it has to be a team effort. It has to be a combination of a marketer who knows how to get people to persuade it through a funnel. It has to be a product person that knows how to put that funnel through the product. And it has to be someone from customer success as well, who might be seeing what value can be added at every touch point to be able to unlock that potential, that whatever the goal is there. It has to be a team effort. And it's hard to create these kind of teams horizontally when there's no buy-in from the top that it has to be done.
Yeah, and also so often there's no buy-in for it to be done, and there's also no way of tracking. People don't attribute the revenue necessarily in a way that is conducive to making people want to collaborate, because it will either sit with customer success, of which sometimes customer success get no reward or benefit for doing that, or it's an account manager, in which case, you know, it's this maybe pseudo salesperson who doesn't want marketing anywhere near it. So it becomes this sort of like, I've experienced it myself because I've worked in customer marketing. You know, it's this sort of weird thing where we're like, well, we all want to play together, but we can't because we don't know how to, and also there's no incentive to either, which is really bizarre, because surely our ultimate goal, even with, you know, with any growth strategy, is to turn people into advocates, right? And sell more stuff. So it just, yeah, it's really weird.
That's an important point, and again, I think it really comes down to the founder understanding how to set up these incentives, to set up common OKRs. We have a goal of, I don't know, let's say 600K to cross-sell this quarter. You marketing are going to focus a third of your OKRs to it. You product are going to focus a third of your OKRs on it, and you customer success a third of your OKRs. And as a result, the teams, they figure it out how to make that 600K happen. So you set up the number at the top to be able to align the teams to work on it.
It's the only way.
Oh, and then in the case of retention, let's say that you have, I don't know, 115 NR, and you want to go to 120. You make it the goal for everybody to get to 115 to 120. Whatever way, just get to it and work together. That's the mission for this quarter.
I think if I ever worked at like not as a consultant, as a like a head of marketing or whatever, and we could do like some sort of a freemium, I'd want a freemium team. I want like a segregated group of people that are going to work on freemium and just leave everything else alone. It's fine. But I don't know if I'll be able to sell that.
Yeah, you need growth. You need growth marketers who do a million tests everywhere. It's not only about the sign up button. It's the full journey.
That's awesome. So if we've got marketers listening who are, you know, they're really interested in everything that you've talked about, and they're not really sure like how they could shift things, you know, towards a product-led growth strategy, where would you suggest, like, what first baby step could they take towards that?
If they're in a position of, if they're in a senior position, obviously the person to take it to is the one that they report, and that usually is the CEO, and ask what are some of the metrics that they care about that they might be able to weave into their next quarter OKR or the next month's OKR that are tying to those goals, and see if within that discussion there's room for the CEO to align that goal with the rest of the team. And I think that these days CEOs are a lot more open to it because they're all focused on retention, and they're all focused on customer success as well. So the discussion is a lot easier than it was even 6 months ago. And I would say that if the CEO agrees that the NR and the cross-sell becomes a priority, or an upsell becomes a priority, then I can't imagine that they would say, you know, marketing, I don't need your support. Product got it. They have it. They know how to improve our cross-sell. I think that they would always be open to start experimenting. And it's quite easy to start experimenting because you can start sending an email on a specific segment of your customers and see what happens to that email. Do you manage to get open rates? Do you manage to get some bookings in your sales team's calendar, in your AM's calendar? So the experiments are not costly at all. They take very little time, and it's silly not to try.
So right, it is the perfect economic climate to worry about your customers now, which again wasn't a thing 12 months ago. Just like, let's grow, don't worry marketing about stuff that exists, just get me new stuff. And now it's like, whoop, we gotta keep everyone very, very happy if we're gonna get through it.
Your customers are your biggest assets, and it's not only I think that we all get so caught that once somebody becomes a customer, just that the product itself is going to do its job and it's going to retain the customers. And the reality is that life happens and champions leave, and the champions are not aware of value. There are all sorts of other stakeholders involved. And if you don't nurture all your stakeholders, if you don't take the right actions to minimize the chances of you getting churn, it just becomes a leaky bucket, and it makes no sense. We're actually doing something cool now. We're looking at customers with highest LTVs, so customers that have been sitting with Chili Piper for the longest, and create cohorts of those customers at the top of the funnel as well. And we look at all sorts of attributes to define that, but it makes a lot of sense, right? You want to be able to bring more of the customers that are sticking with you. That's how you create a healthy business dynamic. We kind of knew, but now we're getting a lot more mathematical with our modeling.
Yeah, I think something that's popped into my head, which we haven't even discussed, and again, it's probably a whole other topic, and it's the ability to get metrics and insights from the platform usage, which again is surprisingly difficult for a lot of B2B marketers to do. So I feel like also if you're going to start doing product led, you need to have those data, metrics and that tracking easy for you to get, otherwise it's a mess.
I'm feeling your pain, Ruta. I think that having the right data is both having data is both a blessing and a curse. If you have too much data of the wrong kind, or too much of the data and you don't have someone to distill it for you, it's useless. But if you have the right insights, it unlocks a whole different world. And that's why I'm so super bullish on Snowflake. I think that I mention it every time I get a chance. Everything has changed since we started deploying Snowflake and putting all the product insights into it, our marketing insights to it, our sales insights, because you can bring it all together and you have a much better understanding of what's happening.
Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you so much, Alina, for being on the podcast. You've been so interesting. And if you have any questions, pop over to Alina on LinkedIn, and also check out Chili Piper. We'll add all of the links to the show notes. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you soon.